there is an agenda with Islamists, and it is to take over whichever country they find themselves in. The way they treat and subjugate their women is disgraceful. They're not British values. We do have sleeper cells in this country. Of course we do. Sharia courts, Sharia law. They don't belong here. They should be shut down. If you don't like it, piss off somewhere else. There's nothing far right about a mother or a father being concerned for their daughters. What we're seeing in Wales is an indoctrination of our young children. Put the hijab on them, the hijab, whatever you want to call it. Teaching children stuff they should never be taught.
We're off to an explosive start.
We don't know who they are, what they've come from, and their culture is so alien from our culture. They marry girls at the age of 12. That's not acceptable over here. We don't do that. Who voted for this? Did you vote for it? Because I didn't vote for it. I don't blame them. I blame the government. If you lose your identity, you lose your voice. If you lose your voice, you've lost everything. We don't have freedom of speech anymore. It's all taken away from us, and we have to fight for that. And on that hill, we must fight. The tide is turning. People have had enough. We want our country back.
What's the biggest threat to the UK? Liberalism or Islamism? I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, Gold Seal. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health. Richard.
Good to see you.
And you. Thanks for coming on.
Our pleasure.
Recently had Dan from The Voice of Wales on, and I had no idea what goes on in Wales, what's been hidden from England. It was the roadmap for communism. Mm-hmm. Am I right in saying that?
Well, it is. If you look at the Welsh Labour government, we've had 2 decades of devolution. It's been an absolute disaster. I mean, one of the hallmarks you could see communism happening was during lockdown. If you look at what Mark Drakeford was doing by locking people down, he was so draconian. I mean, he taped up aisles, stopping people buying essentials. You had this thing, essential goods, non-essential goods. The lockdowns were massive in Wales, the biggest in the whole United Kingdom, actually, and they were the longest as well. But if you look at what they're doing in Wales to the people, I mean, it's, this interference of the state involved in everyday lives, which is what communism is about, is taking complete control and taking land off people and stuff like that. The Welsh government, they have been for years, they have failed the people of Wales for decades, and they continue to do so. I mean, devolution has failed the people of Wales. We have the highest levels of child poverty in the whole United Kingdom in a population of 3 million people. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, it's 3 million people, and we've got a government that's going from 70-odd politicians, now raising it to 96 politicians, paying more politicians to deliver what? What have they done for the people of Wales? Our public services are shit. If you look at education, we're on the PISA scale, which is the marker of where we sit in, we're at the bottom of that table. If you look at our NHS, waiting lists are longer than England, and England's bad enough as it is. We look at Wales, it's even worse. We got hospitals in special measures because they've failed. We got Cardiff Airport, which is owned by the government because they're running at a loss of 80 million a year. They're still running at a loss. They don't know what the fuck they're doing with that. The whole thing is a complete shambles. I mean, and if you look at what's happening in Wales, the way that they've allowed them, is this thing called the Nation of Sanctuary, and Dan probably mentioned it on the show. Nation of Sanctuary, we're welcoming to all asylum seekers, basically spending 50 million plus a year just to house them and put them into schools and indoctrinate them, put the hijab on them, the hijab, whatever you want to call it, and teach them, to be tolerant. Yeah, we're tolerant to a certain extent, but I believe that what we're seeing in Wales is an indoctrination of our young children, especially through the RSE curriculum, teaching children stuff they should never be taught, and especially on Islamic stuff as well, but not just that, Liam, but also on the sexualization of children. Sexualization of children should not be happening. They should be kept innocent and pure, up until the age of understanding, until they get to 16 and 18. But in our schools and our system in Wales, they're being taught stuff that is absolutely filth, and it shouldn't be happening in Wales. It shouldn't be happening at all.
No, I totally agree. And we're off to an explosive start. You mentioned poverty. I know that you were born and raised in a very poor family.
Yeah.
So let's go back to find out a little bit about you. What's your background? I know you've overcome some serious adversity, and I tip my hat to how far you've come and what you're doing. I really do. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. But tell me about your background, the poverty, the traumas, the devastation, the adversity that you've overcome in your own time.
So I grew up in a town called Llanelli, not too far from Swansea. My parents, in fact, when I was born, my parents didn't have a house. They had a caravan on a gypsy site. I've got photographs, actually, my mum holding me in a door of a caravan as a little baby in her arms. So we never had a house. So my mother washed our clothes in the river, literally under a bridge in Llanelli where the gypsies were. We lived on a gypsy. I'm not a gypsy, but we lived on a gypsy site. They allowed us to stay there. Then we managed to get a council house. And the street that I lived on was very, very poor. I mean, I remember Christmases where we had nothing, where my mother would cry. You know, I remember sitting on top of the stairs one night, and my mother was crying downstairs. I could hear her. My father was a drinker. He was a drinker. And, you know, my mother broke her heart, came down in the morning with my 3 younger brothers. No Christmas presents, nothing like that. We had a tin of Irish stew between us all for Christmas dinner. I mean, I'm going back to the, you know, 80s here. This isn't, you know, in the dark centuries. This is in the 80s. And poverty was really bad. And we couldn't get jobs. It was during the Thatcher era as well. And we were really poor. And so what happened, my mother and father divorced when I was about 10 years of age. And that had a massive impact on me and my younger brothers. So my dad left the family home. My mother couldn't cope, which is understandable, raising 4 wild kids as we were. And we were naughty kids. I put on record, we were really naughty. She put us into foster care, went into foster care. And that for me was a huge rejection. So I started hanging about with a group of guys, started taking drugs, softwares like cannabis and all that kind of stuff, which led to much harder drugs later on, as I'm sure we'll discuss in the interview. And so my whole life was around drugs. I was a drug addict. I was addicted to all kinds of drugs, injecting drugs. I was, you know, constantly on it. And to feed that addiction, I had to do crime. So I turned to crime, ended up spending time in young offenders institutes, all because I had this sense of rejection. And the only way I could heal that rejection was to suppress it with drugs. It's the only way I could face it. I couldn't face reality. And I hated who I was. You know, I remember walking past this posh part of Llanelli, because there are 1 or 2 posh parts of Llanelli called Park Howard, where they got bay windows. I'd never seen a bay window in my life. I always were like steel, aluminium kind of windows, flat. And as I walked past, I seen this family playing a board game with a, you know, coal fire in there and nice carpet, nice deco. And I just stood outside the window and looked in, and I started crying, thinking all I wanted was a family like that. That's all I ever wanted in life, you know. And I was looking up saying, God, you know, if you're there, why's my life turned out so shit? What have I done to deserve this? You know what I mean? Why is my family so broken? And I never saw my brothers for many years. In fact, my second brother, Andrew, I didn't see him until I was banged up in Swansea prison. My cell door swings open and in walks my brother. And I'm like, whoa, I hadn't seen him for years because we've been split up in different parts of Wales and the country, obviously in foster care. So I went through the whole system with social services, seen a lot of abuse go on there as well. Seeing how the system doesn't work, it fails young people. It still does today. You know, I've been an advocate for some people in those situations to this day. Actually, still, I'd stand up for anybody in that situation because I know how the system works and it's broken. The prison system is broken. We might get to that because there's no rehabilitation, right? You serve your time, they kick you out, they put you in the streets. You got nowhere to go. And the first thing a person needs when they come out of prison, they need a roof over their heads, they need a home, they need a sense of security. They don't get that. The government don't offer any of those options. They'll say, oh, but we got these... No, they don't work. That's why we've got an overcrowded population in our prisons, not just because of foreign nationals. By the way, there's 15,000 of those that need to be kicked out of our prisons and sent back to their own countries and get justice over there. But we haven't got room for our own people in our prisons. But even when they get there, Liam, there's no rehabilitation for them. So my story is I was a drug addict for many, many years. And I was in Swansea prison in 1993, and an old Methodist preacher came into my cell. Now, I knew nothing about religion, mate. Never claimed to be religious. Religion to me was, men in skirts and, waving this incense, like a woman's handbag on fire sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what the hell it was, you know what I mean? And this Methodist preacher came into the cell and said to me, he said, Richard, he said, God's got a plan for your life. And I'm like, what are you on about? Like, a plan for my life? Do you know anything about me? This guy was wearing a tweed jacket, a green shirt, paisley tie, and these thick-rimmed, NHS kind of black glasses, who I would never normally speak to. They weren't in my circles, you know what I mean? But there was something sincere about this guy that really got me. You know, when you meet someone and they're very sincere, they can cut through like nobody else can. And he did. He got to my heart. He really spoke to me. And he just talked to me about God's love. He said, Richard, God loves you. And I'm thinking, first of all, how can there be a God? And secondly, why would he love someone like me? I am the scum of the earth. The things I've done, the crimes I've committed, the drugs I've taken, the people I've hurt. Why would a God love me? And he says, because God does love you. Because he's got a plan for your life. He'll forgive you. And, I know everyone would resonate with this message, but for me, in my prison cell, that spoke massive volumes to me. Subsequently, I went into rehab, Christian Rehabilitation Centre, and I had an encounter, a spiritual encounter, that changed my life. I was 18 years of age at that point. And from that moment on, my life completely changed. I mean, literally, the drug addiction went, all the stuff I was doing just dissipated, just went. It was a modern day miracle. I ended up becoming a member of staff of that rehab. I eventually becoming the director of the rehab and running several of the houses and programs that we had with guys and girls coming in off the streets. So worked with homeless people, people on drugs, got the High Sheriff's Award for my work in the community. You know, it was just an incredible time. And, you know, through it all, you know, my life really was one of, I mean, I shouldn't be here. I consider, my dad used to say to me before he passed, he said, Richard, remember, every day above ground is a good day. You know, and he's so true, because I shouldn't be here. Speaking to you today, I should not be here. The amount of drugs I put in my body, I should be dead, man. You know, so I believe I'm here for a purpose. I believe, you know, there's something significant that I'm on this planet for. I'm not just another name or a number. I was a number in prison, Taylor 791, right? I'm not anymore. I'm more than that. And I believe that I'm here for a purpose. And part of being with you today, you know, is part of that purpose, part of that journey, stepping stone to other things, that I believe there's a plan for my life. And I do believe there's a plan for my life.
Well, good for you, because great things happen when you believe in yourself. Before your spiritual awakening, what were the crimes that you were committing to feed your habit? And then what was life like in prison as a young man in Wales before the spiritual awakening?
Yeah. So I commit all kinds of crime: car theft, burglaries, shop theft, frays, fighting, drug dealing. I mean, the list goes on. I was convicted for 30 offences. Because when you're a youngster, they give you enough rope to hang yourself, because the justice system was so weak then. Basically, what they used to do was they say, right, let's bail him, commit more offences whilst he's out on bail, build a massive charge sheet, 30 convictions, he's definitely going down this time. So I remember getting into the meat wagon, going to Swansea prison. The wooden doors open, I'm shitting myself. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going in with the bravado, you know, I'm a criminal. I wasn't, I was scared. I was a young man of 16, so I was going into these prison doors. And you go through reception and they fill the forms in and they ask you all these different questions, your dietary requirements and your religion. I put Christianity. I don't know why, like everyone does, you know, we're a Christian nation, you know what I mean? And then they give you all your kind of bed pack, you shower, you change. They do your meds if you're on meds and all that kind of stuff. And then they take you through A wing. This is in Swansea Prison, Young Offenders Institute, which is the adult wing, and then it's the young offenders side of it. So you walk through literally, and I'm shitting myself. I'm walking through this prison. I'm thinking, whoa, what's happened to my life? And then they take me up on the twos on the landing. The cell door opens and closes behind me. And I'm sat on the bed. I'm tooled up with a guy called Jason Edgell at the time. He's passed away, unfortunately, with an overdose. Most of the people I was in prison with today are dead. And this is sad. You know, I'm just, it's a miracle that I'm here, like I said earlier. And I'm sat on the edge of my bed. I'm thinking, is this what my life has come to? This is going to be, and I almost accepted it. I thought, this is going to be the rest of my life now. I'm going to be in and out. I'm going to be institutionalized. I'd accepted that. My first time in, you know what I mean? So I'm sat there. And back then, prison was very different. You didn't have TVs in your cells. You were banged up 23 hours a day. You didn't have toilets in your cells. You had a piss and shit in a bucket in the corner. You'd slop out there, and you'd slop out at different times, call it recess toilets. You'd slop out to keep your piss pot nice and clean. You'd tie a bar of soap around there with a bit of blanket out of the sheets of the bed, and you put it in there so it keeps it fresh. You know, it was gross. I mean, you know, you literally, it was archaic. It was really old. It was proper jail. Jail these days is a piece of piss for people. You know, I mean, I know people are in there. I know it's taking away their freedoms, and that's the kind of punishment. But they have so many things today based because of their human rights, because people complained about, you know, the treatment they're getting in prisons. So now prison is like, you know, they got TVs in their cells, they got Xboxes, they got all sorts in there. But when I was in there, it was a complete different story.
When you come out, your brother died of an overdose. Yeah. How did that affect you? Massively.
I think he's my baby brother, because he's my youngest brother. You know, there's four of you. It was four brothers, the Taylor brothers. We were known in my town, still are. My story is slightly different now than theirs, but it really affected me massively. I remember I was at a rugby club dinner because I was played rugby for Blaine at the time, and I was having a pint and I sat there, and the phone went, and it was my mother to tell me your brother's died, and I was like, what? I just didn't believe her. You know, that instant kind of shock. No, this can't be true. So I got a mate to take me down, drove me down straight to Llanelli. I got there, walked into the house and found my brother lying on the floor. He was purple. He had gone already, you know, and I got there before anybody else, and the ambulance came and the police came afterwards. And, you know, Liam, this is why when people look at people on the streets, whether they're smackheads or whether they're crackheads or whether they've got drug issues, I don't judge them. You know, I look at them and I think, I feel sorry for them. I emphasize because I understand behind every person like that, behind those eyes that are so clouded over because of all the pain and the trauma they've been through, is that there's a real person inside there that really wants help, you know? And I was fortunate that I found that help. You've got to take that help. And that had a massive impact on me. And it gave me a real passion and compassion to want to do something to make a difference with my life and to help other people as well. Hence why I got involved then with running rehabilitation centres and things like that around the country, because I felt I have to do something. So what I did was I wrote my story called To Catch a Thief, my autobiography. I placed 70,000 copies in every prison cell in the country. I placed my story to give people hope, to say, listen, I was where you are sitting right now. You're reading this book in a cell probably that I might have sat in. I got out of it. You can get out of it too. And I used to get 1,000 letters a week sent to me, Rich, can you help? So I set up a massive team to answer all the messages. I did as many as I could myself, and then get people into rehab. After rehab, get them work, get them jobs. Some of them got married. Some of them are successful business people now. So the success stories are fantastic. So that kind of losing my brother, I turned that pain into something that I could use. So I turned that into a testimony rather than a tragedy. I really felt I need to use this. And, I didn't mean to come on you to get emotional, but I am, because when you ask me that question, it just hits me every time. Because there are millions of people in this nation, sadly, who have got some form of addiction and they need help. They need help, and for all of us, looking down at somebody because they're less than us is condescending. I hate people who've come from a better lifestyle, whether it's a class thing, posh person looking down on someone because they're working class. Like that, to me, I don't see class.
And we are in the middle of a class war.
Absolutely, we are. And I'm from a working class council estate, I was raised and brought up in that way, as I mentioned already. And I think for me, having come from that and built my life up and been successful, and I had, 1 or 2 businesses. I started a few churches. I did loads of different things. I worked in rehabs. Then I got into politics. I did television. I had my own TV show, To Catch a Thief, on ITV, on Channel 5.
What was that about?
So basically, I got contacted by Optimum.
Obviously catching a thief.
Yeah. The idea is because of my past experience, they wanted to get into the mind of a criminal. So they had me kind of dressed up with cameras, going into shops and robbing the shops. Literally on camera, right?
And getting away with it.
Yeah, getting away with it. I did garden centres, I did second-hand shops, antique shops. I walked into one shop with a cello, massive cello, and no one stopped me. The thing is, with being a criminal, right, the cheekier you are, the more you get away with.
I know, the more audacious.
Absolutely. And so we did a whole series there was 6 episodes, me and a guy called Will Davis, an ex-copper. His dad was Royal Protection for the royal family, actually, many years before. And so the whole program was based around that and going in, and then afterwards going back to the shop saying, look, I've robbed you. This is all the stuff I've robbed. And they're like, how the did you do that? And I'm like, well, it was easy. So what we did then is we put security measures in place. So the idea was to help that shop to stop them losing any more profits from theft. So I was turning my kind of experience into something good.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can just imagine you stealing a piano from the Royal Albert Hall.
Whilst playing it on the way out.
Singing, I'm stealing your piano.
Yeah.
So how did you get into politics? Because, what a contrast.
Yeah. So, like most people, right, I had no interest in politics at all. They were not the solution to the country's problems. And I was watching our country in decline, literally before my eyes. It was during 2016. And I saw what was happening, and the Brexit vote was a big thing for me, right? That's what really got me engaged. When 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union, we had these bunch of politician posh twats in Westminster saying, it's not going to happen. And I got really angry, and I mean really, really angry. I knew nothing about politics apart from watching Question Time on a Thursday and shouting at the television and my mother telling me to calm down, you know what I mean? Because I used to get really irate. And I remember Mum saying, instead of shouting on the TV, Rich, why don't you do something about it? And it's this awakening, it's political awakening. And I thought, she's right. It's great to shout about what's going on and tell people the problems, but rather than do that, try and be part of the solution. So 2016, I was running a podcast called Rich Politics. because I was engaging with politicians and people like that. Even had a couple of Labour people on there, which I was surprised because I was classed as far right. They got told off for coming on my show as well. It was just crazy at the time by HQ. So I was running this show and I had Ben Habib on there. And Ben Habib back in 2006 was saying then what he still says now. The consistency was amazing. And it was around the same time that he became part of the Brexit Party in 2016, I believe. And I joined the Brexit Party. And then I got really involved. So as a candidate in Blaenau Gwent, which is the constituency in the Valleys, Welsh Valleys, finished second to Labour, took a majority of their votes, so halved their vote share there, finished third highest in the country. And if Conservatives hadn't stood in that constituency, along with a few independents, I would have won the seat, which would have been unheard of, especially in that part of the Valleys, because it's been Labour for donkey's years, do you know what I mean? So I started getting involved in politics through interviewing people. and then stood as a Brexit Party candidate. Then it changed to Reform. When Farage left the Brexit Party, I left the Brexit Party because I felt as if they were leaderless. They didn't have anyone at the helm that had the charisma or the ability to be able to woo a crowd or to pull it, to get people in. So I thought, it's done and dusted. Brexit's been done. So what's the point of me staying around with this party? So I'll just leave. And I left politics altogether.
That's what I fear with Reform. Now, a lot of my audience are Reform voters, and I try not to sway anybody's opinion or vote because I don't want to be divisive. If I had it my way, we would all unite and just kick them Liberals into touch. But I fear with Reform that without Farage, there's no party. If he was to have a heart attack, heaven forbid, but then who's gonna take the ranks? Where is the party? So I don't think it's just pinning your hopes on one person as opposed to a cabinet. It worries me. That's my only concern. I'm not being divisive. I know a lot of people that watch me and support me. They're Farage fans, and that's fair enough. Even though if he has lied about Tommy on TV, we won't go there. But he can apologise for that, by the way, and redeem himself. There is always that option. But I don't want to slam Farage because he has got a lot of qualities. But I just fear that without Farage, there's no Reform. And it just sounds like that's the reason you left the Brexit Party.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, Farage is Reform. Reform is Farage, right? It's as simple as that. It's a Farage cult, and what Farage says goes. He's the majority shareholder there, him and Zia Youssef. It's not democratised at all. He has full control of the party. So if, there are regional coordinators that say anything that he doesn't agree with, they're booted out. We've seen it with Rupert Lowe. We've seen it with James McMurdoch recently. We've seen it with Rupert Lowe. They even tried taking him into jail, mate. I mean, they made allegations. They want the guy in jail. This is an honourable bloke, you know what I mean? Ben Habib being another case in point as well. Happened to him as well. They booted him out. And this is when Farage had left the political playing field, done his thing, made his money elsewhere, whether he was in the jungle or what else he was doing. And he's seen an opportunity to get back into politics. By that time, I had rejoined Reform, right? So after the Brexit Party finished, Farage came back in. I then rejoined Reform because I thought Farage is back in the game. Now we stand a chance of winning our country back. Because it wasn't about Farage for me. It was about the country, right? And I thought we got a chance with him. But then what happened was I watched what Farage was doing. And let me just go back a little bit. Because I came out of politics. After the Brexit Party, I stopped politics altogether for 2 years. Two years sabbatical. I was done with it all. I'd seen the corruption, seen the lies. I'd worked in the Welsh Parliament. I worked as a caseworker for a Brexit Party MS at the time, Mark Reckless. So I was actually in the belly of the beast, in the Senate, right? And I seen what was going on in the corruption. And I thought, you know what? I don't want none of this. This is bullshit. This is. They don't care about the people. All they care about is their big fat salaries, their second homes, and everything else, and how much money they can get out of the system or the taxpayers. They didn't give a shit. There is the few that do generally care. So I get that on record, but most of them don't. They're in there for the wrong reasons. And I took 2 years out, and it just happened that after those 2 years, I met up with my old friend who's with me today in the studio, Jojo, and I went to see her, and she said, "Rich, do you want to set up a podcast called The Land of Saints and Sinners?" I said, "What's it about?" She says, "Well, there's something happening in the country, politically and spiritually." Now, this kind of woke in my ears, the spiritual aspect, this spiritual awakening. And I was obviously engaged in politics before, and she said, we need to sit down and look at it. And, we started looking at what was going on in the country, and young people in particular were getting fed up with the political system, that it was broken, that it wasn't fixing nothing for them, wasn't offering them nothing, just slogans and buzzwords. And you've seen recent surveys that there has been a real spiritual awakening in the country amongst young people. Now, I'm not talking about the religious side of it now, the kind of necessarily the church buildings, man. I'm talking about a real inner awakening. People are like looking at the Christian message and thinking, is there something in this? Especially when our Christian message, our constitution in this country right now is facing existential threat. When you look at what's happening with the demographics and our country is changing, people are waking up saying, hang on a minute, I might not be a practicing Christian, but there's something about the Christian values that we're losing, that are being eroded, that are being changed and diluted by ideologies that are being imported and invaded into our country. And we need to look at that and we need to say, hang on a minute, because if you lose your identity, you lose your voice. If you lose your voice, you've lost everything. We don't have freedom of speech anymore. It's all taken away from us, and we have to fight for that. And on that hill, we must fight. And that's one of the reasons. And the other reason why I got back into politics then, I had the 2 years out, is because I was watching Tommy Robinson from a distance, right? And I could see what he was doing, and I could see the way he was being treated. People like Piers Morgan had interviewed him, all these old interviews. And I was sitting there thinking, this guy's not racist. This guy isn't all these things that people are saying. Yeah, he's a checkered past. Mate, my past is a lot worse than Tommy's. You know what I mean? I was in prison for doing wrong. Tommy's been in prison for doing right. And so I could see what was going on, and I got speaking to Georgia. We set up this podcast anyway. And as a result of doing this podcast, she said to me, I think you need to get back into politics, Rich. I'm thinking, right, okay. So I was inspired for our friendship for 31 years. I've known her. She's an amazingly strong woman. She's got a story herself. I know you spoke to her earlier, Liam. And she's a survivor herself, so many different experiences as well. And we've both got stories, really. And we came together and we thought, you know what? We've been through some shit together. It's about time that we stood up for some of the things that we've been through, that we can give back and we can offer help, support, advocacy, and stand up for the rights of people. The people who can't speak for themselves, who haven't got a voice. We need to give these people a voice. And, of course, then Nigel came back in. I joined the Reform Party. Then what happened? Right, okay, so he started slating Tommy Robinson. And I think it was Mayor Tusi on one of his programmes. He put it out there when I did my resignation. I did it on X. I was slaughtered by the way, I've got loads of friends in Reform. Like yourself, you've got people who watch the show. Great people, right? So this isn't about them. This is about what happened and what they did and how the party ended up.
I think it's important at this stage because I don't want people switching off from your message because you know what people are like now? People are like echo chambers. And if they disagree, they think, I'm switching off. Please don't switch off. Please stay engaged. Please listen to alternative views. And whether you love or loathe Nigel Farage, whether you think he's the best thing since sliced bread and he's the only one to save the UK, you can still hold him to account. We don't want to be lied to. We want honesty. So I thought I've got to say that because accountability is so important and the British public do not want to be lied to anymore by anyone, even by their favourite person.
Well, that's the thing in Liam, because people are looking for an alternative to what we've had. We've had the Unit Party, right?
Yes.
We've had the Labour and Conservative Party. There's been nobody else. There's been nothing else. So people are pissed off and enough of those two unit parties. And what Keir Starmer's to the country right now, he's failing massively. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't even called a snap election yet. I don't think he's going to finish a full term personally. But anyway, that's my opinion. And I think the only place people can go is Farage. Now, when I know Farage. He came to my constituency twice when I stood. He's a lovely guy, amenable. He came to the rugby club, had a couple of pints with him, talked to people. Great guy. And this isn't an attack necessarily on reform people. This is just the true facts. I watched him change. I watched the man change, on some of the things that he stood so stern on and so hard on. He started to change. And so the man that I had faith in and trust in, and that's one of the things with politicians, having faith and trust goes a long way because you're giving them your vote. And that's a lot, because people fought for our votes and we're consenting, giving it to them, consent to represent us. And so I seen him change. And some of the stuff more recently on mass deportation and the trans ideology in prisons handed over, and Widdicombe's comments about it as well. I'm just going to be honest. This is what I saw. I seen all this happening before me, and I thought, I can't belong to this because I didn't want to be part of a party that said one thing but was doing another. And then I seen the treatment, as I already mentioned, of some of his senior members and some of the stuff mentioned by Tommy, and I thought, if you've got nothing good to say about something, don't say nothing at all. I mean, I remember Richard Tyson in an interview saying, that lot, I was that lot. I was at the front of that last protest, Tommy Robinson. I was there, mate. It was patriotic. It was country loving. There were flags flying. We were singing hymns, we had the guys doing, Christian songs there. It was land of hope and glory. It was, winning back our freedoms and, the feeling, the buzz, the energy, the excitement. And I thought, this is the United Kingdom. We are the people. And this is the thing. They were all races there. It weren't just white middle-class people. They were black, white, Chinese, yellow. We were all there waving our Welsh flags, our St. George flags. It was, the Union Jack was flying and people were proud to be British. And I thought, this is what we need to see. But across the road in Parliament, where we were, outside Parliament Square, it wasn't being replicated in that building. And I could see how much hunger there was for people to want the United Kingdom to be great again. Great Britain and Northern Ireland to be the nation, the sovereign nation that we should be. And be proud of our history, proud of our culture, proud of our heritage. And not apologise for our history by reparation, saying, you did this. So what, man? We helped so many different countries in the Commonwealth. They become independent, most of them now, some of them for the worse. But we helped so many different countries to prosper, through what we did during the Commonwealth. And I understand people got issues with that. Suck it up, Buttercup. I mean, we were a great nation. And I believe that we are right now on the precipice of losing all of that. We're, through our identity, through what I'm seeing happening with the demographics in our country. And, and I know Tommy's always been somebody that's been seen pigeonholed as exposing the grooming gangs. But there's more to Tommy than that. He believes in this nation. He's a patriot. He believes in the United Kingdom. And it's great that he's joined Advance UK, by the way. We'll probably come to that a bit later. I'm saying that as a party leader for Advance UK.
You're now teeing me up for the questions I ask you.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
I see what you did there. Let me cut him with a question then.
Yeah.
What's the biggest threat to the UK? Liberalism or Islamism?
Islamism. without a shadow of a doubt. And I think two go hand in hand because the Liberals support them. So they're working in cahoots together. I mean, let's be quite honest. Most of the people you see at these rallies, these welcome refugees people, I mean, they're Liberals. They've got purple, blue, green, yellow hair. I mean, they got, I seen one woman with a big board in her, refugees welcome you on about a thing, I can't say I'm supposed to be a Christian tonight. But anyway, I mean, it's just nuts.
Why don't we, for the sake of this interview, for this special moment we're sharing together, just pretend you're not a Christian and speak real free.
And then I'll ask for forgiveness afterwards.
We'll ask the big man for forgiveness.
Yeah. So, this Liberal there, with this big board and saying, welcome to my pussy. I mean, things like that. I'm like, what? Are you serious? These are people that come in here that have changed the demographics, and Liberals are part of it as well, is progressivism that says, let's welcome them all in. I wonder how many of those people would let them in their homes. Gary Lineker, remember when he was on about it? Oh, yeah, let him in, with all these stuff that was going on. Did he take anybody into his house? Did he hell? No. All these woke kind of progressive lot on television, who've got a platform and stuff like that, talking about, we should let them in, and if you speak out against them, you're a far-right person. There's nothing far-right about a mother or a father being concerned for their daughters or their children. When people move into their community, undocumented males know nothing about them, arriving on small boats or by lorries, or by whichever means they get you illegally. We don't know who they are, what they've come from, and their culture is so alien from our culture. It's not the same. It's not compatible with British culture. They marry girls at the age of 12. That's not acceptable over here. We don't do that. And when I seen all this happening, obviously I get really pissed off about it. I get really angry about it. And I've said, actually, even as a pastor when I was preaching years ago, I did say this 20 years ago, the greatest threat to this country is not from the political spectrum, it'll be Islam. I've always believed it because I believe in what biblical prophecy says. I'm not going to go too deep. That's not a Bible study, right? But literally, there is an agenda with Islamists, and it is to take over. Whether people believe that or not, and I'm not saying all Muslims are bad people. I ain't saying that. I got friends with Muslims, right? But I know for a fact that their main big agenda is the takeover of the whole, whichever country they find themselves in. That is their agenda. It's in their books, in the Quran, right? And if you don't convert, you're a dog. You're treated as a second-class citizen. You're scum. The way they treat and subjugate their women, it's disgraceful. They're not British values. They're not the things that we stand for. And they've come in here and they want to teach all these doctrines, like they've got the Sharia law, the Sharia courts over here. They're independent because they have no power. They have no legislative power at all. British law supersedes them. So why are we allowing them to run in our country? Sharia courts, Sharia law. Why? They don't belong here. They should be shut down. And I think people fleeing these countries, I don't blame them. I blame the government. The government have allowed this to happen on our watch, and we've let them. And what we're seeing right now, and it's massive, more and more patriots around the country are standing up. I mean, driving down to London today, right? Via Wales, Birmingham, coming down here today, hell of a journey, right? Coming down here, the amount of flags that I saw fly in, the Union Jack, it made me feel proud. Now, people say, you're a Welshman, Rich. Yeah, I'm Welsh and I'm British and I'm proud of that. I'm in siarad Cymraeg. I speak Welsh. I speak my native tongue. I love my country. I love Wales and I'm passionate about Wales. I love it so much. And seeing the decline, because we're part of the United Kingdom, of course, and seeing the decline happen across the country and across the nation, that made me really, really angry. And I thought, man, I can't just do a podcast anymore. Which I'm still doing, by the way. The Land Sensing is still up and running. Just a plug there, right? Still up and running with Giorgio and Clark and the other team. We still run that. And it's kind of, we don't just talk about politics. We talk about everyday life, current affairs, things that are going on. And it's quite controversial. It's quite edgy as well. We delve into a whole bunch of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And seeing what was going on in the country and running the podcast and going out on the streets and meeting people and talking to people, there's a real sense of anger and indignation in people about the way the country's being governed. The way the politicians are just treating us as cannon fodder, taking our votes for granted. When Labour came into power on this manifesto, the amount of promises that Keir Starmer's reneged on is incredible. I mean, the list goes on. We haven't got time to go through them all, right? But the biggest one for me was the open borders. This happened under Tony Blair. This was a Blairite project. The EU was a Blairite project. Digital ID, Blairite project. All of this can go back to Tony Blair. And he's in with the Bill Gates lot, the globalist elites. He's in with all of them, right? Let's not be, the Blair Institute. It's all part of it. It's a globalist agenda. And all that he was doing was setting up the government to be in such a position that it's in now. Open border policies, cheap, so we can get cheap labour into the country. But look what's actually happened since. Those open borders have remained. Under the Conservatives, it was the same. So they can say what they want, the Conservatives. They're liars. Even Boris Johnson promising we'll do this, we'll do that. He didn't do it. Didn't get Brexit done, by the way. We've not had Brexit. It's not been done. We're still part of the ECHR. We're still tied into the WHO, WWF, all these super international bodies that we're part of. We never voted to be part of those. I never voted to be part of those. I voted for our parliament to be sovereign, to have, in all of its parts in the United Kingdom. And what we've got here, we've got a Supreme Court that is full of left-wing judges and lawyers passing laws. Laws should be passed in Parliament, not Supreme Court. Get rid of Supreme Court. We don't need it. What do we want it for? Don't need it. So there's a lot of things really that I get really pissed off about, because I can say it now, I'm taking the Christian hat off, that really anger me. And I think, we have got a fight on our hands right now. We really, really have. And I'm not just saying that to stir up kind of, emotions in people. The fight is real. Take a look at our cities around the country. Birmingham, Leicester, Cardiff, Swansea, Wales, and Newcastle, Liverpool, Manchester, all these places. Look what happened in Southport because that gap of misinformation wasn't put out straight away. Look at how all that kicked off. And it was, the government are responsible for what's happening right now. And the tide is turning right now. I feel this spiritually, and I feel I can see it as well in front of me politically. The tide is turning. People have had enough. But they're not relying just on politicians anymore. Hence the reason why, they've seen so many protests outside hotels. You've got mothers. These are just mothers who care about their children. And they care about what's happened to their communities. And they're realizing, so I read a report just the other day. There was 400 kind of asylum seekers in a hotel. I think about 49 of them have been arrested for assaults, for different range of sexual assaults and all kinds of things. So, and that's just one community. You see what's happened in Epping and everywhere else. Not just Epping, it's happening everywhere. It's happening in Rouse in Cardiff, right? There's a hotel there full of asylum seekers. But they don't tell you. Circle, all these big companies have paid billions and millions of pounds to house them. They don't tell you they're putting them there. They dump them all there. They bring them in secretly at night by a bus. They're bussing them all in. Who voted for this? Did you vote for it? Because I didn't vote for it. And yet we're allowing it to happen. And I think what's happening, anybody that stands up to this is considered to be far right. We're not far right, we're just right. There's just right and there's wrong. There is no far left. There is no far right. That's a fallacy. That's an illusion that has been created by the political establishment to divide us, because they want us to be divided. That's part of divide and conquer. That's part of the plan. But what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing more and more people waking up and uniting around a common agenda, and it's this: we want our country back. We've had enough.
Do you think that it's possibly too late? Now, it's good to see people paying attention and seeing what's happening on a much broader scale. But do you think it's too late? Here's my concern. You tell me what you think about this. I mean, we have got so many foreign men in the country we know nothing about. Now, we know where they come from. We know their culture. We know their religious beliefs. We know that in amongst them, it's very likely there's going to be radicals in there. We know that we have 30, 40,000 Islamists on the MI5 terror watch list. So it would stand to reason that the unvetted men that are in the country, a percentage of those are going to be ISIS members, Al-Qaeda, however you want to package a terrorist. So we've got terrorists now in the country that we don't know about that are plotting, sleeper cells. I think they're going to be networking covertly. And when the time's right, when the order's given, there'll be an orchestrated attack that will send shockwaves through the UK like they never imagined in their lives, like October the 7th. Now, do you think we can make a change before that happens, or do you think that's going to happen first? Do you think that's what it's going to take before we really stand up?
Well, I think, first of all, the government believe what you've just said, because they're implementing lockdowns in schools now against terror attacks. They're already practicing this, right? So this has been put out there already. So the schools are getting prepared for lockdowns, not from a virus, from the pandemic, as I call it, right? I actually believe that they're getting ready. So the government are already passing down from Westminster and Whitehall saying, listen, we've got to get ready for this. They're expecting it to happen. We do have sleeper cells in this country. Of course we do. We brought people, we flew people back over from Afghanistan. Some of them I know worked for the British government when we were over there and everything else. But some of those have infiltrated as well. There's infiltration in every part of society. We look at our parliament as well. We've got pro-Gazans, the pro-Palestinian lot was being prescribed as a terrorist group. We've got politicians who support them, right? I call it Jezbollah group, Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana, whatever her names. But going back to your point, is it too late? I don't believe it is. I believe we're in the final few moments where we really have a chance. We really, really have a fighting chance. But it's going to take every parent, every son, every daughter, every brother, every uncle, every cousin to say, listen, I'm not just going to sit at home in my little castle and just shout what I agree and disagree with. I'm going to get out. I'm going to get up off my seat. I'm going to put my boots on the ground. No, not violently. We do not advocate violence, right? I mean, Tommy's made it clear countless times, as you know, many of the marches that and protests he's put on. Many that I've led many in Wales when the vaccine rollout was out, mandatory vaccines, we stood against it. Vaccine passports, I stood against all that. And there was no violence.
Well, look at what's happened at Epping because they protested peacefully.
Yeah, well, that happened in Llanelli, my hometown, Stradley Park Hotel. Case in point, right? I have to say, I was out of politics then, so I didn't go down there. I didn't, demonstrate. I wasn't engaged in politics at all. I wasn't living in the area, anything like that. So I wasn't there, but I was watching it from afar. And I got to give credit on the show to those people who they stayed there every single night in tents, camped outside there, stopping migrants going in. I mean, and they won. The government overturned the contract. They bust them all out of the hotel, gone. And that became like a blueprint because this is the first time you think about it across the UK that we'd seen this happen. This a few years ago now, just over a year ago, I think, wasn't it? Or more than that, maybe. I think Dan on your show has told you that. And that, for me, showed that it can work. So when people go outside hotels and protest like Epping, you mentioned, people power works. It actually works. We can get people out, but you've got to have the feet on the ground. And people are going to be passionate for that. Going back to the question, is it too late? I don't believe it's too late. I think we are, the nation is in decline. We look at politicians for the answer, but I think there's a combination of both. There's a spiritual awakening happening, and I think the two are combined. I think there's going to be something going on. I think the church needs to wake up to reality. Unfortunately, we've seen so much corruption in the church, with paedophilia as well. We've seen, corruption financially. We've seen so many different things happening within the church that people don't have faith in, the church anymore. But there are voices within the church, and they're being silent. Where are the preachers? You see them on the streets. What happens to them? These are good guys. They get arrested for preaching the Bible. Mm-hmm. But you get someone preaching the Quran, they're left alone. Where is the justice in that? That's two-tier justice, two-tier policing, straight in front of your eyes. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's too late. I believe that, I'm part of something now, which I'm sure we're going to come to in a few moments, that I believe is going to give people an opportunity, a chance, that there is an alternative out there, that we can do something, we can shift the dial, we can win our country back, but it's going to take true patriotic people to really stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to get behind this and we're going to win our country back.
So the solution for you is church and community and culture before politics. Here's a question. I used to see you on Talk TV and GB News. Why don't I see you on those shows no more?
Let me go back.
Have you been banned from GB News?
Well, not officially, but unofficially. So let me go back. So when it first started, I remember the first week, I was on the first week of GB News when it launched, right? And the guy who set it up came over and we even talked about me having my own show. I was on regular, right? I was on all the different presenters, blah, blah, blah. Most of which have been cancelled now, Dan Woodton, Lawrence Fox, I mentioned a few. Quite a few of those guys have been cancelled, kicked off. I was on there regular. My phone stopped going once those guys got cancelled. They got cancelled. My phone stopped going. Talk TV, I was on there once a week. I had my own show called, I think it was Taylor's Talk Time or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. State of the Nation. That was it, State of the Nation. And we talked a lot about Welsh politics, of course. That was Mike Graham. And he's still a friend. I know there's powers above them. But I had a weekly show on there. And all of a sudden, nothing. No phone calls, no contact, no reasons why. I've reached out to them, no response. All I get back is, producer will be in touch with you if a story breaks. And, I'm not chasing people to get on television. I don't have to do that, you know what I mean? I'm all about community. I'm all about people, you know what I mean? I don't need the limelight. Don't need it. Simple as that. So they gone cold. Now, if you look at what's happened recently, when Benabee went on to announce Advance UK, he's not been on since. Rupert Lowe has been apparently banned. I mean, I don't know if that is just hearsay or it's the facts, but that's what I've heard recently. So there are people like us on our side of the argument who are fighting back against the agenda, fighting back against the globalists, fighting back against what's happening on the mass immigration and all the things we're seeing, these undocumented immigrants coming in. When we speak out, I think we're considered to be too far right for that channel. It's supposed to be the people's channel. That's what they called it. The home of free speech. Remember when it was launched, the home of free speech? Mm-hmm. It seems as if it's been curtailed now. I know we got Ofcom and stuff like that and they got regulations. But when you look at what's happening, and I believe actually what's happening now is it's turning more people into independent journalists and doing podcasts that are getting a bigger reach than most of these mainstream media channels are. Way bigger. If you combine them all together, we are the mass. Our voice is much stronger because people have had enough of mainstream media. And I think GB News have become more mainstream media than they intended to become. And I think it might be a funding issue. I think that this is my personal opinion. I think it's become a bit of a reform show. I'm going to get stick for this. I know, I don't care. I'm going to type. Can I say what it is, yeah?
This is a free speech platform.
Love it.
You're talking to a man that interviewed Bonnie Blue. Despite the backlash I got, everyone's free to air their views and opinions here. There's nothing off limits for me.
Right. Okay, so Reform, right, have a number of presenters on there, some of which are very close to Farage. They were MEPs with him. Not going to mention all of the names because some are good people, right? But Farage is their greatest asset. He has the biggest viewing figures out of all of GB News. So he's pulling in the dollar for him. So if they get rid of Farage, GB News collapses. They got really good presenters in there as well. But a lot of those presenters were MEPs as well. They were with him in the European Union, right? So for me, and these are people that I used to have contact with regular, I have no contact with them anymore. It's like I've been cut off. I've been alienated. I don't know why. Maybe because, I'm supporting Tommy Robinson. Maybe because I'm supporting people like Ben Habib and I believe what Rupert Lowe's doing with Restore Britain. Why should that make a difference? If you believe in the freedom of speech, you should accept other people's opinions. It's your right to offend me. If you offend me, then that's your right. It's the freedom of speech, and I should accept that. That's normal. That's what it should be. And a lot of these guys were cancelled, and I've seen this happen. This cancel culture, and for some reason, it seems as if like Talk TV and GB News, they're completely different, separate entities. I get that, but voices like mine seemed irrelevant, and others who were on our side of the argument when it comes to certain things on immigration and Islamists and things like that. We were too close to the bone for them. We were too risque for them, So maybe we need to be a bit more careful.
But you know what? Hopefully this will give GB News a nudge, because I think a man with your passion and your vision and the want for change, you'll be great on a panel with someone like the complete opposite who hates Britain, like Narinder Kaur. And on the subject of Narinder Kaur, however you pronounce it, the Britain-hating leftist commentator, race-baiting individual. I mean, when I first signed up to X about a year ago, I sort of come back after years off. I actually got banned from X. I got banned from everywhere. But when I first saw Narinder on X, first I thought it was parody. Then she was joking. She didn't mean what she said. She's just a wind-up. I invited her on the show. I even had a pleasant exchange. The more I see of her, I just think, oh, you're just a total sociopath. You're just completely detached, lunatic, narcissist, very unpleasant. You hate the country. What on earth are you doing here if you hate it that much? What do you think about her?
Well, I think she's made a career out of it, hasn't she? I mean, if you think about it, she wants to be famous, right? I've worked in television.
At the expense of our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's put in that above our country. The way she slags our country off and runs our country down is deplorable. I mean, it's just disgusting. I mean, if you don't like it, piss off somewhere else. Why stay in a country? I wouldn't live in a country, right, if I didn't like it. If I moved to Spain, if I moved to Greece, and I didn't like the way the country was being run, and I didn't like what was going on, I just leave the country. The answer's simple. Stop mourning and piss off. Don't hang about. But she's built a whole career. She goes on Jeremy Vine. She does all these, lefty kind of programs where you run these woke programs and go on there because she gets her opinion heard on there. And, she didn't get picked for Strictly Comes Dancing, right? So good old Tom Skinner did, and a great guy, bish, bash, bosh, I mean, she has a massive... she throws toys out of the pram over it. Like, grow up.
That's what you call a narcissistic meltdown.
Absolutely, 100%.
She could the mask.
Yeah, I mean, she was moaning and complaining, and I've seen her on X because I follow her. She follows me. I might unfollow her. Actually, after this.
Let's put it to the audience very quickly. Yeah. Who would you rather see on Strictly Come Dancing, Tom Skinner or Narinder Kaur? And I hope they both read the comments.
Yeah, I think they'll go for bish bash bosh, wouldn't they?
I would say so.
I mean, look, he's a working class boy. He works his ass off. He's a family man. What can you not like about that guy? He's a legend. I love the guy. You probably know him, dear.
I know Tom personally. He's very much a family man. He's full of love and joy and laughter, and he's got a good work ethic. And also, I won't say anymore actually because there's a surprise coming on the dozen with Liam Tufts, but I won't. I won't mention it. September the 13th, Unite the Kingdom Rally. Tommy Robinson presents. Are you going to be there? And if you are, or if you aren't, what's your reason for or not for being there?
Well, there is no reason not to be there. That's the first thing.
So you're going?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm coming down with my team.
Tell me why.
Well, first of all, I mean, I got to say this. I mean, I was quite surprised when Tommy joined a political party, right, as a member of Advance UK, because that was out of the blue. Because it's like Tommy's always remained, apolitical. So I'm not with any political party because as an activist and as someone who exposes what's going on in the country, stands up for the freedom of speech, that's his passion, that's his drive. And he has sacrificed so much, Liam. I know you know that because you're a very close friend of his and you've seen what he's been through and his family have had to go through. So first of all, I want to put that on record. The man's a legend. I mean, I'm not just saying that to, score brownie points with him. Don't need to do that. He is a legend. He's done far more than most politicians. Let's be quite frank about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what people are waking up to, they're waking up to that reality. And I think for me, seeing him join Advance UK, which was a mad thing, and, Ben Habib set this party up. We haven't talked about this much, and I became a member. Then I was invited to be part of the college. Then he's asked me to lead Wales, which was a massive thing. So all this was going on, and then I was still coming to the 13th of September before Advance UK. Forget all that. I was coming. I'm going. Because I was at the last one when they arrested him, remember, just before on that civil case, which Lord Hammer, I like to call him, it was bedfellows with fucking Keir Starmer anyway, let's be honest, because he got the job appointed because he put money into his leadership race to become the Prime Minister. Once he became Prime Minister, he made him Attorney General. So it's all back pocketed and stuff for the, boys, jobs for the boys kind of thing. And I think the reason why I'm going, forget the crowds, forget the cameras, forget the media, I'm going as a citizen. I'm going as someone who believes in this country. I'm going as someone who believes that our freedom of speech is under attack. And whatever we can do to fight back against that and push back against that, to let that building opposite where we'll be with hundreds of thousands, potentially 500,000 people at that freedom speech rally, or whatever you want to call it. People are calling it all sorts in here, right? I'm sure you can correct me on that.
I would class it as a free speech festival.
Fantastic. That's even better. Festival, because we're going to enjoy ourselves. As I mentioned before, the last one I went to, and I tell you what, it'll be a place of so much fun, so much joy, so much happiness, celebrating one another's diversity. Because, of course, we're diverse. I'm Welsh, you're English. And we hate each other doing the rugby, but apart from that, we're mates. We're across the United Kingdom. And the reason I'm going is because I want to support those who will be there, from the youngest to the oldest. I want to show support to Tommy, who has sacrificed so much and even been put in prison for it and losing his livelihood in so many different ways. But thank God he's got a team of people around him that love him and support him in the way that they do. Because without that, and he knows that, Tommy knows, without his team, he can't do what he does. He's got a great team, right? And I think it's important that people are, these aren't people who are engaged in politics. These are people who see what's happening to the country, don't give a shit about politics, but they look at someone like Tommy and go, he's one of us, he is. He's just a bloke like me, I'm a working class bloke. I get what that guy's trying to do. What he's trying to do, I can get behind, I can stand for. And for me, that's the reason why I'm going to be there, because I believe we need to fight for our women, our children, especially what we're seeing happening with him exposing the grooming gangs, because that's still going on in our country. Let's be under no illusion. That is still going on. That is not finished. There is still more stuff to be exposed. And thank God, what Tommy's also done, he's shown the power of independent journalism. I mean, the amount of people now that grab their phones, it's just fantastic, that are getting out into their communities and filming what's happening, and it's spreading like wildfire. So he's also created this sense of, you are not powerless, that you can do something. Just grab your phone, get a gizmo, whatever it is you use or whatever, get a microphone on, and get out there and tell people what's happening in the community. And I think that's been a revelation to a lot of people. And, there are lots of others doing it as well, like yourself as well. Great podcast, which I watch all the time, by the way, just to let you know.
Is this your favourite podcast ever?
Well, yes. Yeah, I've got to say yes for that. Oh, you beat me up afterwards.
That's a fucking good answer, that was.
See what I mean?
Do you know what? You've spoke a lot of sense today.
Yeah, thank you.
But that was the best answer
but
yet.
No, but seriously, what I like about this, what I love about your podcast in the UK, obviously, you're UK based, but yours goes worldwide. It's uncensored, it's unfiltered, right? Basically, I've seen people on your show speak in ways I've never seen them speak before, right? I've met them in public. They've been on other podcasts, and they cross their T's and dot their I's, and they keep it, I must speak like this, But here it's like, fuck, this is how I feel. And you pull that out. I mean, you pull things out of me. I'm like, take your Christian hat off for a minute, Rich, and just say it as it is. And I'm like, all right, I'll tell you what I say at home. Like,
Next thing you're talking about women's pussies.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, especially just if I had a bony blue on you. But it's just one of those things for me. And I think for the 13th September is going to be absolutely crucial. It's about fighting and trying to wake Parliament up and really fighting back for the freedom of speech, because it is under attack right now in every aspect of life. We're seeing it, and we're seeing the indoctrination of our children in schools. We're seeing ideology being coming over from other foreign countries, not just in our schools, in our education, in our government, in all spheres, spectrums of life. We're seeing that happen, and I think people are waking up and saying, well, if anything, if there's nothing else I can do, at least I can go to this festival to say I believe in the United Kingdom. I believe in the nation state. I believe, that we need to fight for our freedoms. We need to fight for our democracy. What is right? We need to fight for our children, the future of our children. Because what scares me the most is if we remain silent, if we say nothing, we just let them get away with it. And we can't stay silent. We've got to stand up and we've got to speak out.
Totally agree. And I would say anybody watching and listening, if you believe in unity, peace, freedom of speech, and the protection of your family and community, you got no reason not to be there. Now, before I ask you my final question, where can people find you? And I'll put all your social media links in the description.
Right, so they can find me on X RW Taylors, and at Land Sinners, which is the Saints and Sinners. We're on TikTok. Just search for saints.andsinners. YouTube as well, YouTube channel. Find us on Land Saints and Sinners there. Most of our podcasts are on there as well. And we have all kinds of stuff on there, right? So it's not just politics, it's everything, right? But yeah, you can find us on all those social media channels, and I'd appreciate a follow. And I tend to follow people back as well, because I like the interaction sometimes. Even if I don't agree with somebody, I have a bit of banter, People take X too seriously, mate. I mean, I seen Tommy the other day having a bit of banter with, I think it might have been Rupert Law. I think it was Tommy having some banter with Elon Musk. They banter on X. I mean, it's just banter. I mean, some of it, obviously, you can put some serious stuff out there and we expose some of the stuff that's going on. But people take social media sometimes too seriously, I think. I think you need to take a chill pill.
Also, you can get a very good message out if it's said in jest.
Absolutely.
It takes the sting out of it, and then people think about it afterwards and think, that was layered. There's some meaning in that. Let me contemplate that, because I didn't take offence because it was delivered differently. Okay, so here's the final question, which you've been waiting for. For me personally, I don't know which way to turn. I'm politically homeless. I am all for people choosing Reform, UKIP, Advance, whoever it is they want to vote for, the Tories. Vote Labour, we got nothing in common. Just check yourself.
Amen to that. I'm on the same page.
Check yourself. But 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm politically homeless. Pitch Advance UK to me. Why should I vote for Advance?
Well, first of all, you represent the majority of people in this country. And that is a shocking statistic, because the majority of people don't vote. And I would say that what we have is a party that's different from all the rest. We are a democratic party. We democratise the party the way it's set up. We can get rid of our leader. No other political party is like that. With the college, the structure set up, check our website out, advanceuk.org.uk. It's all on there. So we can get rid of Ben Habib as the leader of the party if we want, right? So first of all, you can't do that in any other political party. We stand for nation state, the sovereignty of our nation. So we will leave all these super international powers, whether it's the WEF, the WHO, the UN, all of these things that invade our domestic politics and have no place there, that supersede our parliament, which should never happen. And the way that we've been annexed, or Northern Ireland's been annexed, or Great Britain and Northern Ireland, that's nation state. It was part of one United Kingdom. We believe in the freedom of speech, absolutely in its entirety. Whether it offends people, if it's not palatable, we believe we must fight for the freedom of speech. That is so important to us. Equality under the law. Everyone is equal. No one is above the law. Minority groups don't get treated differently to the British citizens. We will put British citizens first. That's not been happening in this country. And I think the idea that people have said to me, well, you're split in the vote. They say they have this kind of idea because reform exists. There's no such thing as split in the vote. It's an illusion. And I'll tell you why. Because no one's entitled to anybody's votes. Reform don't have an entitlement to people's votes. There are, 60 million people in this country. When they vote, you can't say, well, we own that many votes. No, you don't. People need to vote for a party they believe in. And this is why I believe in Advance UK. I believe, and I've known Ben since 2016, and I've watched him operate. I've listened to all of his podcasts. I've interviewed him myself. The man is full of integrity. He's authentic. He's real. And he has not changed. From 2016, when I first interviewed him, the very same things he was saying then, he is saying now. He has not swerved. He's not changed. He's not been blown about by some political wind. He has stayed the course. And I've watched him, and I actually have faith in the man. I actually believe in what he's saying, and he believes in what he's saying. He's putting his money where his mouth is when we get to 30,000. By the way, we're not far off. We're nearly there. I'm literally nearly there, right? I know Ben's on holiday. I don't know when this is going out, but he's been on holiday. He's been fishing. He needed a break. But literally, we're nearly there. He's been working his socks off. The team in Wales, we've built a team up in Wales. We're working our membership is growing massively. We've got planned events around country, around Wales, North Wales, Mid Wales, South Wales. We've got massive events planned as well, big rallies. But the real reason why I would say people to join Advance UK is this. Take a look at what our mission statement is. We have a constitution we've written, which if you look at it is very democratic, unlike any other political party. I speak about reform, Zia, Nigel Farage, they have more shares in our party than anybody else, so you can't get rid of them. They own the shares. So what's something you mentioned earlier? What's something happened to Farage? Who becomes leader? All that kind of stuff. So for me, Advance UK is the only democratic party really standing that gives people an alternative, because people didn't have an alternative before, so they only went to reform. So I'm not saying to hate reform. I don't hate reform. I got friends there. I got people who are regional coordinators. They're friends of mine, But politically, I could see Farage changing into something else. Didn't like what I saw in him as a leader. Doesn't mean I hate him as a person. I don't hate people, But on policy issues and things about how things should be run, how a country should be governed, I couldn't go with it. Ben Habib pops his head up. I'm like listening to him. I'm thinking, I got this guy. I get this guy. And we're polar apart. If you listen to him speak, he's privately educated. I mean, I was dragged. I got kicked out of school for taking magic mushrooms when I was 15, for goodness sake. Do you know what I mean? I had to re-educate myself. It's crazy. So, two poles of spectrum. And he's like, Rich, will you lead Wales? I'm like, yes, but of course I will, but I'll do it, But it's just, and the uniqueness as well, the membership is anybody can join. And I mean anybody, even if you don't agree with, you have a certain idea about, immigration, as long as you're a British citizen and you love this country and you believe in this country, join Advance UK. And we will promise that we will fight with every fibre of our being to fight for you, to fight for this nation, to make it sovereign and great again, for an independent, prosperous, United Kingdom.
That was a great final answer. And we got your Twin Town moment in the end, taking mushrooms at school. And I'll tell you what I'll do, because I've interviewed Ben Habib, thoroughly enjoyed it, couldn't fault him on anything. So we'll put the Ben Habib thumbnail somewhere on the screen. So if you want to learn more about Advance, you can click straight on that. If you enjoy these conversations, as you know, even channels like Talk TV and GB News are being a little bit distant from Richard. Hopefully they won't now, because we've got a better understanding of the man. Like and subscribe to the channel so I can keep having these conversations, please. And Richard, your energy blew my hair off, and that was great. Thank you for coming on.
Love you, man.
Love you, brother. Really enjoyed that. Now put your Christian hat back on and stop talking about pussies.
Right, amen. Father, forgive me for I've sinned.